And hello, everyone. I'm Tina Brigitini, and welcome to Aligned Healer. If you've been following this channel for a while, you've probably noticed that I don't spend much time teaching techniques. There are already thousands of videos that teach techniques. So instead, interested in a much deeper question: why does healing work in the first place? Because once we understand that, every technique begins to make more sense. So today, I'd like to begin a brand new series that I call The Architecture of Healing. And over the coming weeks, we're going to step back from individual modalities and explore underlying principles that create lasting transformation. Now, whether your background is energy healing, coaching, hypnosis, yoga, meditation, counseling, body work, or you're simply someone trying to understand your own life more deeply, I believe that these conversations will give you an entirely different way of thinking about healing. Now, have you ever noticed something curious? Two people can experience the exact same breakthrough. Both leave the session feeling lighter. Both say, I feel completely different. And yet, 6 months later, one person's life has genuinely changed. The other finds themselves repeating the same emotional patterns they thought they had already healed. So, why? Why was one healing real and the other wasn't? Did one practitioner have a better technique? Or are we asking the wrong question altogether? So, for over 25 years, I've been asking that question. And the answer completely changed the way that I understand healing today. See, many of us were taught to think about healing as removing something, removing anxiety, removing trauma, removing stress, removing pain. But what if healing isn't primarily about removing anything? What if healing is actually about reorganizing something? That shift changes everything. Now imagine buying a beautiful old house. The walls have cracks, the doors don't close properly, the floor creaks. You can paint every room, replace the furniture, hang beautiful artwork, and from the outside, it would look transformed. But if the foundation underneath continues to shift, eventually the cracks return. Not because the paint failed, because the structure never changed. So healing works very much the same way. The symptoms are often the visible cracks. Patterns are part of the structure underneath. So, what are patterns? When I say patterns, I'm not talking about habits. I'm talking about organized ways of living that developed because they once made sense. So, children don't simply learn information, they organize around safety, around relationships, around belonging, around loss, around unpredictability, around love, around fear. And these organizations become incredibly intelligent. They influence how we interpret relationships, how we experience our bodies, how we respond to stress, how much connection feels safe, even what possibilities we believe are available to us. And over time, they become so familiar that they no longer feel like patterns. They simply feel like me. And this is where I think many conversations about healing become incomplete. See, some approaches focus almost entirely on the mind. Others focused almost entirely on the body, and others focused almost entirely on energy, while others are focusing almost entirely on the nervous system. So I don't believe these systems exist independently. In my experience, they organize together. So as we develop, our nervous system is learning, our energetic organization is developing, our beliefs are forming, our body is adapting, and our relationships are shaping us. They're not separate stories, they're chapters of the same story. So when we understand that, healing stops becoming a search for the right technique. Instead, it becomes a process of helping the whole system to reorganize. So notice the language I'm using here. I'm sharing a framework that has emerged from decades of clinical observation and practice. It's one way of understanding healing, and ongoing research continues to explore how different biological, psychological, and social systems contribute to lasting change. And this also explains why some healing experiences feel profound and yet don't remain. A person may genuinely experience relief. Their body relaxes, their mind becomes quiet, they reconnect with emotion. And those are meaningful experiences. But if the deeper organization that supported the original pattern hasn't begun to shift, life eventually pulls them back toward familiarity. Not because they failed, not because healing wasn't real, but because systems naturally return to what they know. And lasting transformation often involves helping those underlying patterns reorganize over time, not simply creating a powerful experience in that moment. Now, if you're a practitioner, this may be one of the most important ideas you'll ever explore. Our job isn't simply to create impressive sessions. Our job is to recognize what the client's system is actually ready to reorganize. Sometimes a less intervention creates more lasting change. Sometimes presence is more powerful than another technique. Sometimes the greatest skill isn't knowing what to do, it's recognizing when not to push. And that realization transformed my own work. I stopped measuring success by how dramatic a session appeared. I became much more interested in what continued changing long after the client left. Now, one of the reasons I love studying both ancient healing traditions and modern understandings of regulation is that they ask similar questions in different languages. See, ancient traditions observed that human beings organize around experience, relationship, and consciousness. Modern neuroscience explores how experiences shape development, regulation, and adaptive responses. They're not identical frameworks, but I believe they can inform one another in meaningful ways. And when we approach them with curiosity, instead of trying to prove one superior to the other, we open ourselves to a richer understanding of what healing is. Now, after all these years, I no longer believe that healing is about becoming someone new. I think it's about creating the conditions where the whole person can reorganize around a greater safety, coherence, flexibility, and authenticity. That's a very different goal. And I believe it's one that deserves much more attention. Now, one of the greatest joys in my work is exploring these questions with practitioners every week. And inside my energy therapy practitioner certification, we meet live for 2 hours each week. We don't just learn techniques, we examine how healing unfolds, discuss real client situations, and develop the discernment that comes from thoughtful conversation and guided practice. So, if today's conversation resonated with you and you've been looking for a grounded, integrative approach to energy therapy, you'll find more information in the description below. I'd love to welcome you into that learning community. Now, in our next episode, we're going to explore a question that quietly changes everything. And that is why awareness alone doesn't create transformation. Because understanding your patterns and reorganizing your patterns are not the same thing. If this conversation gave you a new way of thinking about healing, I'd love to hear from you. And tell me where you're watching from. What kind of healing work or personal growth journey has brought you here? I'm especially interested in hearing from practitioners around the world because one of the things that I love most about this community is learning from different perspectives and traditions. Thank you for spending time with me. And until next time, take good care of yourself. Many blessings, Tina Bridgetine.